Welcome to the Silver Creek Insights podcast. I'm your host, Felisa Wiley. Today, I'm joined by Julian Plotnick, founder of 4 Day Philly, a grassroots initiative advocating for a 32-hour work week across the city of Philadelphia. Julian's path blends civic innovation with deep technical expertise. He's a former software and embedded systems engineer. He's led research and development efforts and built monitoring platforms for research labs. Now he's channeling his problem solving mindset into policy change, working with business leaders, scientists, and legislatures to reimagine how we work, live, and thrive in cities like Philly. Julian, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. Yeah, you did a pretty good intro there covering my background, but yeah, I went to school for computer science at Drexel University, and I've been a software developer for my entire career since then. Um, but at my last job, after a couple years into it, I convinced my boss to give me a 4 day work week, and use that to sort of both amplify what I was doing at work and then started doing this advocacy outside of work with my newfound free time. And now I've been doing that for a couple of years now.
No, that's amazing. And when you pitched the idea of a 4 day work week at your previous job, I'm certain you probably went to your boss with some like statistics as to how your work was you increased productivity and efficiency. And then over the course of the time, like what were some like stats that you found out about this 4 day work week?
I mean, a lot. I think during the pandemic, a lot more pilots and studies came out about the idea. People were sort of more open to it when remote work and hybrid work sort of became more viable. People started thinking about other ways to make work more workable for people. Uh, and yeah, so I started seeing a lot of these articles about different companies trying it out, and some countries ran like pilots for groups of companies or for government institutions, and just all of them seem to have these like surprisingly positive results, where it was like something like 90% of companies that tried it stuck with it, and the ones that didn't usually just had like planning issues about how they implemented it, where it was like, oh, that totally would have worked if they had just done it better. Um, and so just suddenly I had all of this material that I could sort of put together and like have, a dozen articles I could show to my boss and be like, hey, like this isn't just something that I think I can do. It's something that like is working all over the place.
And what are some unexpected benefits that you discovered when talking to organizations that have adopted the 32-hour work week model?
Uh, I mean, I don't know about unexpected just because so many of the organizations just found all the same results that these studies were showing, which is, it helps with retaining employees as well as hiring new people. It sort of gets everybody more on board with the organization, so they all kind of work better. And yeah, I mean, just the productivity gains that could come with it was a little bit surprising because I think it's counterintuitive, but that's pretty all over the place. And then I've also just found from talking to people, there are a lot of companies that have sort of taken half measures in that direction, either doing like summer Fridays or like 4 10-hour days, or even like just some hybrid schedules where people talk about having more flexibility on their days
Mhm.
off. Um, there's sort of some steps in that direction that have like some of the same benefits as a 32-hour week, but I think that it was cool to see sort of the difference between actually having that versus the sort of half measures. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my microphone battery died, so
All right.
perfect. Perfect timing. I wanna say that I prepared and charged it before this, but I didn't, so
Worse things have happened.
worst thing has happened, so this will be edited out, of course. Let's see, we were talking about okay, I'm just gonna re-ask the question, we could start over, okay. So for those organizations who adopted, like, those half models, like the for working 4 days for 10 hours or some are Fridays. What are some of the differences that you see in retention, employee retention versus the 4-hour work week?
Yeah, I think it's a little more it's much more dependent on like the company because usually it's sort of they make it an option for people. So like when I worked at I did a co-op at Lockheed Martin like a decade ago, and they had the option to do 4 10-hour days or even do nine. You could do something called the 980 schedule, which was you got every other Friday off and you worked 9 hour days the rest of the days. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
and so those models, I think, have been used in a lot of engineering positions for a while because they've sort of realized that flexibility is more beneficial for keeping those sort of like really high paid knowledge workers at companies. So those are people who like have other job options pretty much. And
Interesting.
so there's more competition to sort of keep them at a company. But when I talk to people about it, they're sort of like, oh, like it's nice to have that extra day off. It feels so relaxing. But I know that from my personal experience, like there's a much bigger difference between sort of having a day sort of off, like with remote work, versus like actually having the day scheduled off. And anyone I've talked to who does 10-hour days is like, it's nice to have that time, but there's no way that they're actually getting more work done in those extra 2 hours a day. They just feel kind of annoyed about it. Uh,
Yeah.
so that one is like sort of you can take away some of the resentment and just be like, yeah, you guys are still getting the work done just by dropping those 2 hours off.
Yeah, because there's also that fear that reducing hours means reducing output. When you're having these conversations, how do you respond to that?
I mean, a lot of people do seem to understand that we don't measure output correctly, and that is sort of a bigger problem on its own. Like I've talked to managers who've said, if I gave my people like less hours to work, how would I know they're still getting all of their work done? I'm like, well, how do you measure that now? They're like, we don't measure that. That seems like a problem. But I think that the truth is by framing it in terms of what you're actually trying to accomplish and saying, okay, like what inefficiencies are keeping you from doing that faster? It
Mhm.
usually isn't like, oh, we actually need more hours in chairs to accomplish this. It's like, oh, yeah, like we need to do this process more efficiently or like have fewer meetings or shorter meetings. There's like really simple things that people can do to do more focused work during focused time and then have more time away from that work where they're either collaborating with other people, doing more, you can have meeting days and then heads down days to just like focus on work, uh, or just take more time away from work. The analogy I like to use is that like most people feel they get their best ideas in the shower. And it can help to take a step back from what you're doing and come up with a better solution instead of just, repeatedly hitting your head against the same wall.
No, for sure. And I like that you brought up the fact that people and organizations aren't really measuring output correctly. And of course, the work that you do is going to vary from company to company. But what are some standard ways of measuring output that companies can employ today?
I mean, yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of. I mean, that's been a big question. Coming from a software development perspective, that's a huge problem already. Do you measure lines of code that people write? Because that doesn't really give you anything useful, especially now that people are using, ChatGPT. There's all sorts of questions about the quality of what you're doing versus just how much output you're producing. Um, on a longer term scale, I think it really has to do with tracking what you're trying to do and then how long it takes you to do that over an extended period of time. So, if you have, if you're doing like an agile process and you have like stories broken down into tasks and you can measure, okay, how long do these take on average? How much time does it take us to like accomplish a bigger picture thing? And then try that with a 5-day work week switch to a 4-day week and see if you're still matching those metrics. I think when you do things like that, it really helps build into the process, like making sure that you're getting done the necessary things and not building up too much backlog on the other end.
No, for sure, and as I asked it, I was like, that's, like, a heavy question because, 1, there's tech debt, there's one-off projects, like, you don't actually know what's going to happen on a week-by-week basis. There could be a fire that all, like, hands on deck, and maybe that team originally monitored, like, output by the amount of, PRs, push to prod or something, because of this fire, now there's less because everyone was all hands on deck, so you can't really use that, so it changes. So it is like a heavy question. It could change 100%. You don't know. Some people work a little bit slower, some work a little bit faster, so then can you actually but maybe the person who works slower, the quality of their work is actually better than the person who, submits the most PRs in a week. So it's like
Yeah.
a give or take, yeah.
And even outside of software, like I've talked to people in sales, which I feel like is notoriously one where people are paid commissions, and so they're like, oh, the more hours I work, the more I'm making. But I
Mhm.
talked to one guy who said that he sort of gave himself a 4-day week, like he was allowed to do that, but because he's totally commission based. But he said that he would every other week he would alternate working between Tuesday or Wednesday, I think, and take the other one off. And he said since he started doing that, he was making significantly more sales on the day that he did work versus the 2 days combined. Just because he felt more motivated to do that for like justifying having the day off, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but like that sort of thing, to me at least, was surprising to hear from somebody in sales, just because it's usually thought of as more directly related to hours, I think.
No, and it also begs the question of, like, sometimes people like busyness. Busyness doesn't necessarily mean, "Oh, I'm being effective with my time," or "I'm being, like, super, super productive with my time." It's all about that management and your ability to stay focused throughout the day. So, like, for that example with that person who was more productive on the day that he was working, he's probably accomplishing as you mentioned, he sold so much more because he was so much more focused. So, it's really hard. I really wish companies would understand that it doesn't matter how many hours you have us in the working, there comes a time where it's like, we just need a break, and our brains are just, like, filled with mush, but from your perspective, how do we rethink what productivity really means in an age where busyness is often confused for effectiveness?
Oh, yeah. I would start by looking where things are broken. I think during the pandemic, a lot of people started using like mouse clickers and things like that, where it's literally just automated tools to make it look like you're busy. And I think that AI is making that easier and easier, and like that's become a big part of a lot of people's work, is like making sure that things go out at the right times, that it looks like they're working until 10 p.m. or something. And that seems like something that people are putting a lot of effort into. Like they put more effort into looking busy than being busy. And I think finding ways to reduce incentives for that is probably the best starting point.
No, I agree, and if every company let's start with, like, Philly, because that's where your organization is based out of. If every company in Philly Oh, no, George, sorry. Give me a second. This is a terrible podcast day. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry, Julian. Um, my dog's a puppy, and he was about to eat his poop, so I had to pick it up immediately.
It's okay.
Sorry. Okay, so that was okay, so I'm gonna re-ask the question. I'm so sorry, I hate doing this. Wait, no, you answer the question.
The
You
I didn't answer the
you didn't answer.
Philly. Yeah.
Okay, let's rewind to that. I'm gonna restate it, and then I'm I apologize. Not every interview is like this, I swear. If every company in Philly moved to a 4-day week tomorrow, what cultural shift would you hope to see in 5 years from now?
Uh so I would say the big ones are one, sort of the business focus. I think that Philly has a local reputation for being, an innovative kind of place. But I don't think that's the first thing people think about when they hear Philly. And I would kind of like for that to be more of a thing that like we're doing cool, tech things and business things, the kind of stuff that makes businesses more willing to look at us as a major hub for economic activity. But outside of that, I think the general cultural shifts are more interesting. I know we have a really active art scene here. We have all sorts of museums. What with us being the birthplace of America, we've got all sorts of stuff related to that. I kind of like the idea that people would have more time to engage with that part of the city. I've talked to a lot of artists who are excited about the idea of using their time to do more of their art, since often they're doing that on the side of another job. Um, but also, I think that just in general, there's been more of a decline in person interactions everywhere. And
Mhm.
I like the idea that by sort of encouraging people locally to have extra time out of work, we can also make that part of the culture of it. It's like you get this extra time and you use it to be part of the local community where everyone else also has this time. I don't really know exactly how that would look, except hopefully more groups and clubs forming more civic engagement in general. I think that again, we are the birthplace of American democracy. It seems only natural we should do that kind of thing here.
No, I like that vision. And I want to take a moment back to talk more about your personal journey because you went from embedded systems to urban advocacy. What moment, besides you going to your manager and saying, "Hey, I want to work for 4 hours," what was that moment that pushed you to shift from, "I want to solve these technical problems," to, "I want to solve this community problem"?
Um, okay, so as part of my last job, I was essentially helping my former employer to like launch a startup, and so in addition to the technical work I was doing, I had to start engaging with the startup community here. And every time I would go to an event or listen to someone speaking on like what we're trying to do as a city, as a tech ecosystem, all of it came down to keeping people here and like especially young people and tech people. We have all of these schools here. How do we keep people in the city when they graduate? And I was like, I think that this 4-day week that I'm doing could actually help with all of that. So I kind of started just bringing that idea up to the people saying it, and they're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So I've just kind of kept pushing it. Yeah, it kind of naturally evolved from, I know this works for me, and I know it would work for most other people that I talk to. Most of them said that they could only do it if everyone else did it first. And at the same time, the city is saying, we want to attract these people here. What can we do to attract them? And I'm just trying to tie those two things together.
And you know what? It's really true because Philly is a brain drain. We have a lot of students that come in here for the wide array of universities and master's programs that are available. Then they get their degrees and then they go back to whatever city that they came from. So if we figure out some way in order to retain this talent, there's talent here. It's crazy. Whether it's a senior graduating from Wharton, someone in the Penn engineering department, or Temple or Drexel, the talent is right here. So it is important to expand this community reach and make this talent like want to stay. So what would you say is the hardest part of leading a movement like this and what keeps you going when it feels impossible?
Uh, the hardest part is just the uncertainty. I mean, I really, I haven't done anything like this before. It's very different from being a software developer. And so I feel like a lot of it is sort of figuring out what it takes to make progress. I've linked up with a nonprofit doing the same thing at the national level. They're called Work For, and their goal is to get a 32-hour week for the U.S. Um, but I connected with them saying, "Well, I'm trying to do this in Philly. What can I do to like help you guys, and what can you do to help me?" Kind of thing. And they're working with other local groups trying to do things in different states. And so we all now talk about like what we're trying to do. There's groups working more with unions, which I haven't really done here, but Philadelphia is a big union city, so it makes sense that that could be helpful eventually. Um, or just generally getting employers to like form communities where they sort of teach each other how to transition to a 4-day week.
Mhm.
Uh, Whereas a lot of what I've been doing is really trying to understand all of the stakeholders in Philadelphia and how this could potentially tie them together uh, to help accomplish multiple agendas at once.
No, and who are these stakeholders that are involved in this?
I mean, the city, more economically development focused groups. So like people like the Chamber of Commerce, or there's an organization, One Philadelphia, uh, another one, Campus Philly, and they all have goals of, keeping people in the city and helping build up these industries here, and helping, generate more business. Some of the talking points in Philly have been about like foot traffic in center city and, obviously SEPTA ridership. So finding the groups that care about those things and saying like, hey, how would this help what you're already doing? And usually they're enthusiastically agreeing with me and then adding on to, how it could specifically help them. Um, a lot of artists I've talked to, there's organizations focused on, building up Philadelphia's art scene.
Mhm.
And a lot of them seem to really want, a UBI eventually. They think that would help with arts. And they're like, oh, a 4-day week could be a stepping stone towards that. I'm like, okay, like not what I was going for, but that makes sense.
No, I feel like every group is gonna try to use it to their advantage. So, you're saying that it's not necessarily a stepping stone. Are you seeing this four-day work week as a new standard?
Uh, Yes, I mean, we've had a 5-day work week for like 100 years. There's no reason that that should have been like it shouldn't be a permanent thing, obviously, but also I don't really know exactly what timeline anyone should expect for something beyond a 4-day week. I think that with the advent of AI being much more accessible to people, it is reasonable to think that, you know, a 3-day week could be coming soon. I know, I think Bill Gates said something about that earlier this year. And it's become a big talking point that, yeah, we will probably be working less eventually. Um, that can either be catastrophic if everybody just gets laid off at once, or we can figure out a way to move in that direction that, keeps everyone on board and also gives people more structure for what they do outside of work. I mean, I like the idea of people having more time to go out and volunteer and, meet their neighbors and make friends and start families. Um, it could also devolve into people spend like if everyone suddenly had a lot of free time right now, how many people would just spend it online, there's sort of, you need to make sure that you're providing that kind of structure for things, and that requires planning.
Of course, and so you've done a lot when it comes to the tech world, when it's you've, worked with embedded systems, you've built SaaS platforms. How does that technical lens and what your entire career has required influence how you approach this systematic policy change?
I think that that's I've sort of learned to look at things from a very logical perspective, and so when I make arguments for things, I think people are usually expecting it to be more focused on, the emotional benefits of 4-day work weeks. And I think that it's surprising to people when I'm like, no, like there's hard evidence to support this. This is why it's like a structured like way of doing this would be helpful, and really digging into the data in a way where I can sort of get statistics and abstract that enough to people that I can
Mhm.
get the message across quickly, but it's still really founded in these, logical principles.
And what do you think would be your definition of success for your grassroots? Is it converting all organizations, like a citywide policy change, or are you happy with one, two, three, or five? Like, what's your success criteria for this initiative?
Uh, that is a tough question. I mean, I think that find out as I go. I mean, right now I'm really looking for early wins, and so it's a bit much for me to say like, yeah, like I need to get the entire city doing this for it to feel like a success. But I mean, that would obviously be amazing. So I'm not going to rule that out either.
No, no, I agree, and I understand. It's one of those things that's gonna be an ever evolving process and ever evolving, um, issues that you have to overcome, but I think you're on the right track, Julian.
Thank you.
So I that was all the questions that I had, but I wanna move on to a rapid fire question. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl.
What's one Philly neighborhood you think embodies the future of work?
Hmm. That's a tough one. I mean, I live in Roxborough, and so I want to say Roxborough just because I've started to get to know my neighbors, and I like it here.
Okay. What's one productivity myth you wish would disappear forever?
Uh, I mean, looking busy, but I guess just like time that you're sitting in a chair is a big one. Working late for no real reason.
If you could take a day off every week to do anything, no work allowed, what would you do?
I guess this. I mean, that's sort of how I ended up here. I had about 6 months of doing nothing on Fridays, and I was like, this is really boring. I'm going to go start doing advocacy.
There you go. And let's see, the last rapid fire question. More emails or more meetings? Which one do you dread more?
Ooh. Uh, I've managed to avoid the issue of having too many meetings, so I've heard it's terrible, but that's just never been a huge part of any of my jobs. But I think that a lot of meetings can just be emails. So
I agree. Well, Julian, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciated this conversation.
thank you.